Happy Motivational Monday, everyone. My name is Kira. I am your host, and I'm so excited to have you here today. So, we have Edith hopping on in just a moment, and we're going to be talking about how to keep it human at work. So, we are in the middle of our Leading in Love series, and you are going to see some of our events things changing next quarter, which starts next month. We'll be rebranding some of our events, lots of things happening, but I'm not here to say that now. So, however, we have our Leading in Love series. And we have that is really teaching about how to be a pioneer for healthy and thriving relationships in your life. We started in July with self-love because you can't love others well or have healthy relationships if you don't love yourself. So we started with self-love in July. In August, we did interpersonal relationships, which actually next Monday I'm going to do a survey for your results for that because 92% of you saw an increase in your self-love in July. And um, I want to know how many of you saw an increase in your interpersonal relationships, your friends, your family, maybe some of your relationships. And then this month we're focusing on work relationships. So we spend so much time at work, and I think the topic of work relationships and like work culture can sometimes not be a fun conversation because maybe it's not a human-centric conversation, right? And today we are having a conversation of what it looks like to be human-centric. And that doesn't, it's not a conversation necessarily about like high-level leadership. It's like, what does it look like as an employee of an organization to be in a place that's human centric? What does it look like to have human centric leadership? And basically, what that means is like the people at work matter. Your lives matter. We spend most of our time in our lives at work. So, having healthy relationships there and learning how to resolve conflict is actually really, really important. So, we'll have Edith today for Motivational Monday. And then on Wednesday, we have our larger event for Leading in Love, where we're going to be doing more of a deep dive into the whole topic of relating at work. And then next Wednesday, we have our deep dive. Well, it'll be renamed Deep Dive Mentorship next month. But it's our mentorship program where we take the session that we do this Wednesday and then we come into a container with me and the guide that we work with. And we mentor you on the topic of what we taught you. So it's really that place, the mentorship is where you're really going to get the most work done. So for those of you who don't know what Life Guides is, we have two things that we do. We have the events, which is what you're here doing, or maybe you're watching a recording, and then we have the one-on-one sessions. So our events are really created to showcase our guides to you, to have meaningful conversations. Motivational Monday was built to make Mondays a little bit better and to make our week start right and to give you that oomph to start your week. And to show you our guides and to give you these connections, right? So then we do the deep dive and we get deeper with them. And then we do the mentorship and you get more of that personalized support, but it's not one-on-one. You're not asked to get too crazy deep yet. We kind of just like start touching the surface of some of these topics. And then you have the one-on-one calls with your guides where you're actually able to book a session and begin a journey of support and growth and development in your life with our guides, which is incredibly exciting. So that's kind of how Life Guides works. I'm going to drop all of our links in the chat here. We've got one link, which is where you can find everything. So, oops, I spelled that wrong. Hold on. Nice. So this is where you can register for one-on-one sessions with a guide. You can register for our events. You can find all of our recordings and all of our worksheets to match, and more and more and more from there. So before we get started, I want to hear from you all why you're here today, why you're showing up to Motivational Monday, and maybe how you're feeling. I think it's really important to know where we're at, what we're doing, and kind of the purpose and the intentionality behind why we're doing things because I think when we're grounded a little bit more into why we're doing things, it helps us follow through on the work that we're doing and on the information that we're gathering because, yeah, we're gathering information here, but the work really happens when you start doing something with it. So let me know in the chat, drop that in the chat, and drop a 111 if this is your first event here with us with Life Guides, and drop 222 if you are just a tried and true fan. You just love us. You just can't get enough of us. I love to see it in the chat. You all are amazing. I'm sick at home, but joining for the love and motivation. Oh my gosh, I love to hear that. I need the extra motivation today and I need to start working on myself and to make myself better. You all are amazing. I love this. And we have some newbies. Welcome, Victoria and Kimberly. So happy to have you here. What I would like to see in the world is organizations that care a little bit more about their people. And I think that was always a little bit of my struggle is, we're all coming here, we're all showing up. We should have a common mission and we should have common values that are bringing us together. But sometimes it's hard when you're doing so much work every day and then we're in burnout and all these things. But we want to help that become better. And I think that's a little bit of what Life Guides does is help make your work be a place where your well-being matters too. So I think as we get started, I I want to know how many of you feel like your well-being is a priority in your organizations, or your relationships in your organizations are a priority. Like, hey, we want to have good relating in our organization. Drop 444 in the chat if that's a yes for you. And then drop 555 in the chat if that's a no for you. And there's no right or wrong answer. And Edith has been here a bunch of times. This is her third time here with us for Motivational Monday. She is a neuroplastician. She has done so many amazing things in the world. She really looks at the brain and how to best optimize yourself as a human to live a more satisfying and full life, knowing the way that you actually work, not just the way that you think that you work or the ways that you judge yourself. So, Edith, we just did a little poll in the chat. Most people actually really think that their organizations care about them, which I'm so happy to hear because these are organizations that have invested in life guides and has put life guides really at the forefront of their organizations, and it's why we're here. So to hear that is amazing. But yeah, if you just want to start us off in kind of an intro to human-centric workplaces, and then we can go from there.
Fantastic. Thank you for having me again. And welcome to all of you. It's always a joy to be with Kira and the community of Life Guides. And you said something very important. What is to be in a life centric, human centric environment and that really cares about employees? To start with, making investments as your company has been doing in Life Guides. That's the biggest sign because when companies start investing in the well being, not just giving the tools, the instructions, the clarity of the goals, all of that is very important so we can perform. But when you feel that you have been taken care of, that your feelings matters, that your conversations matter, that you have outlets in which you can privately, confidentially share with someone else that have been in your journey before and have that companionship as we get in life guides, then we can say, okay, maybe my supervisor cannot relate to what I'm going, but I have an outlet and they care for me to be in that journey with me. So that's fantastic. Now, what does it mean to keep it human in a workplace? It's that recognition that we're not machines, right? That at the neurobiological level, emotional beings in constant interaction with our environments. So it's not just about listening to me, asking me how I'm doing, and giving me pats on the back when I do well. Our brains scan every moment for safety, for meaning, for connection. And when workplaces ignore this, they really, without even knowing, are activating stress responses that lowers performance and takes away the trust. So being in an environment that cares is a little bit beyond making people feel good. It really triggers well-being.
Mm. And it makes me think too, because we are hardwired for human connection. We are social species. Our whole entire makeup as a human is made to be in relation and to be in connection with others. And we spend almost all of our time, like so much of our free time or so much of our time in general is taken up at work and surrounded by these people and being human centric. I love that you said about not being machines because in the beginning of the year, we did our Being Human First series, which was really, the beginning of the year, everyone's like, oh my God, I'm going to change in all these ways. And they think they're going to like go from 0 to 100 real quick. And all of a sudden, they're a brand new person. And it
Mhm.
doesn't work like that. And I think that is a part of the byproduct of the conditioning that we can just go endlessly, and we can that we don't fluctuate, that we don't have good days, that we don't have bad days, that life doesn't go on. Because, we have work, and that's a pretty big constant. And then there's life and being a human happening at the exact same time. So when we start talking about human centric workplaces, it makes me think about, what are some of the ways that we can bring quality of life back into the workplace? And it makes me think of things like I've known people who haven't been able to go to a loved one's funeral because they couldn't get off of work. Things
Mm,
like that. Like where can we start putting an emphasis a little bit more on acknowledging that, yeah, there's so much work to do and there's things to get done and we have this mission together, but also there's a life happening as well, and you matter as a person and your life matters as well.
yes. And I would like to take it even one step further of what you said. It's about taking care of those needs that we have sometimes, but what about accommodating different ways of thinking? Then allowing that understanding that because I am very structured as a boss or as a leader, everybody has to be this way, that way, that way. When in reality, as human beings, our brain really might process information differently from another person. So to think that we cannot get to the end result just because they're not doing it your way or my way, it's part of also accommodating that diversity of thought. It's also an important part of being human centric, creating workflows that really are humanized. It's also very important. So then accommodation of that diversity, my purpose, understanding that I need a set of autonomy, psychological safety, and purpose in my work. And that doesn't mean maybe I'm dreaming by helping the community. So if my work also, in addition of me making a living, I can do acts of social responsibility and helping my community, I'm also fulfilling my purpose during my work as well. And that's part of being human centric. It's understanding that we belong to something bigger than just making the day-to-day operations and the output of whatever work that you're doing, whether it's service or production. But it's at the end of the day, is doing things with the human being in the center of everything: interactions, communications, workflow, connection, and making sure that we're not being treated as just another resource, as another number. In the old days, we used to call human resources human capital for a while. It was some places still do. And there's no doubt we are a resource, and for those very finance oriented, maybe they will still call it human capital. But at the end of the day, I like the new wave that calls us people business or people management or talent management. And somebody argue, not everybody is talented. Yes, everybody is in different ways. Sometimes it's not about if you are intelligent. We need to assume everybody is. We just have different ways of expressing our intelligence and different preferences in those intelligence as well. And I like talent and culture. Yes, I saw that on the comment. Fantastic.
I think this conversation around diversity and equality is so important because there's the reality too of, yeah, how do we keep it human centric at work? How do we see that we're all human? You're right. The first thing is to realize we are all incredibly unique. We all have different skill sets. We all have different strengths. We all operate differently. And that's one of the things that I've loved about being in Life Guides is we kind of did a shift in the beginning of the year where my leadership changed and we started looking at strengths-based positions. So what that means is like we all got to look at what are the things we like to do, what are the things we enjoy, and where can we make the biggest impact in this organization. And now we're in those roles, and our specific part of the organization is working really well and cohesively because we're a great team, but we're also in places where we belong. And equality to me doesn't mean that everyone does the same thing or everyone has the same end result or resources. Equality to me means you are different and you are unique. And what do you need? And I will give everyone an opportunity. Not everyone's going to get the exact same opportunity because there's going to be one person who's a perfect fit for, let's say, events department for marketing. There's going to be another person who will have an opportunity, but their opportunity will be more technological and maybe reporting because they love numbers. And then there's going to be another person who I can have be an accountant because they, or yeah, or like an assistant because they love just getting a project and doing it. And that's what equality means to me in an organization. So when we're starting to look at neuroplasticity and open and emotional fitness, how do we help leaders and teams start building that in to show up more human and make us feel that sense of belonging, that sense of purpose, that sense of like I should be here and I feel like this is a place where I matter.
Fantastic. That's a great question. Neuroplasticity is one of the most hopeful discoveries of our time, Kira. It proves that we're not hardwired, we are soft wired, and we can change. Now, remember, we can change with good experience or bad experience. If we have very good experience, then I can expand on trust. I can have the neurochemicals that make me feel good. But if going to work becomes a threat, okay, we're not longer in the cave with expecting a lion to attack us or things like that. But now that lion is the boss, right? Or is that person that is working next to you that is highly critical, and you're like, oh, I need to avoid that. If I'm already on that stress, obviously I'm not going to be in a very human-centric environment. And sometimes I would like to exhort anyone working like in human resources or leadership, making sure that we're always picking up those little concerns that rot around the business before they become big issues. Because sometimes it's that silent, minimal moment of tension that starts building up and start kind of destroying the environment, and we don't even realize it. So we always need to kill it when it's very, very, very small. So always kill those concerns before. I don't like the word kill, but take care of those concerns before they become issues in your office. That's the one thing. And then when it comes to neuroplasticity, that means that we can unlearn reactivity, perfectionism, burnout driven behaviors. Some of us might come to another place to work because we burn out in the workplace that we were before, and we can replace them with emotional regulation, with empathy, with relational presence. Right? It's not quite the same if I walk into the office and I say good morning with my head down, than if I say good morning, Kira. How are you doing today? That eye contact, that connection, it doesn't happen just with words. It's our whole energy that we create this human-centric work. So make sure that we understand that as humans, we do emanate energy, and that energy connects with the energy of the other human being. And when we start saying, I can grow, I believe that others can too, then your brain starts shifting. When we train the brain to pause, to feel, to reflect, when we build habits that align with our highest value, not just for our survival instinct, we're just educating that neuroplasticity for the good things, right? Not just the survival thing. Is that making sense?
Absolutely. And I think, it makes me think that everyone, this is such an important conversation because everyone can be, there's two things I want to say. The first thing I think I want to say is you can show up in two different ways at work, right? I think your most valuable person at work is the person that Edith was talking about that walks in and says, hey, like that has energy very similar to Edith and I, where we want to talk, we want to communicate, we want to converse, we want you to know that you matter and we see you and we care about your life. And that's just because her and I care about people as a baseline and humans as a baseline. So when that's the case, that's your most valuable person at work. But your person, and I love that you talked about like the little whispers of the little things that are usually the most impactful things, right? Like it makes me think of when I have like moldy fruit or moldy food in the fridge, I throw that out immediately, because I know if I leave it in the fridge, everything else is going to get moldy. All of my other produce will mold. And that's the same thing that can happen in your organization as well, is I think when we start looking at human-centric cultures, and when we start seeing that humans matter, it means that as a person, whether or not I'm a leader in an organization, whether or not I'm stepping into an event where I know no one, I feel a personal responsibility for ensuring that everyone has as good of a time as the only thing I control is that everyone has a good of a time as I am able to help them, right? So, I can't make sure that everything goes perfectly, but I know that I am a setter and I know that I'm an energy setter in that way. But if you have someone who's in your organization or who you work with who's like festering some of those challenges, then that's an important place to look. And I think like when we start looking at efficiency and productivity and people being happy in your organization, there's usually a few root causes. And a lot of people are going through the same thing in an organization. And if we listen to that, that's where we start to make the change that's going to help your people or you have a more fulfilled work-life experience. So when we start talking about all these teams that are working remote and virtual, what are some of the human factors that we might overlook in virtual settings? Because it's very different. A lot of what I was just saying was a reminder to me when I worked in hotels and I was around people every day, but now I'm virtual and it's very different. So, what are some factors that we overlook when we're in this kind of environment?
Yeah. As possible, and is a person doesn't have any impediments, because we also have to accommodate. For example, I am one of the clubs that we have visually impaired person, and now there's nothing more challenging than trying to be in a virtual space where you only can really connect a little bit with the eyes, right, and the gestures. It's something. Did you ever experience, Kira, when somebody smiles and you know when that smile is authentic or not?
Oh, yeah.
Because that smile that comes from the heart, that is authentic, it shows up different. Well, it's no different on the screen. One of the things that I do with my team is making sure people have the cameras on. Be camera ready, because when you're doing virtual meetings, think about how can you can recreate the environment as close as possible as if it was in person. And you don't go to a meeting with a back on your head, right? You show up with your face and all, right? So show your face and make sure that not only you're expecting that from supervisors, leaders, coworkers, but you also are willing to give that. The trust and safety is something that we also have to give it to receive it. And sometimes it's not until we start trusting a little bit that we start feeling that other people start trusting us as well. So building trust in the relationship online, it might be a little bit challenge, but it's not as difficult as we think it is. Because as long as we're showing up our faces and our gestures, I'm sure that right now, when we see Kira, she always had that beautiful smile. She's always expressing with authenticity what she's feeling, what she's thinking. So you're able to trust Kira. And that's the same thing when you show up for others in a virtual environment. It's no different. If you're coming across authentic, the person is going to receive authenticity. If you're showing up that you can trust, people are going to be trusting you, right? If you show up like you can connect, others will be connecting with you. It's the same thing. We're emanating energy even across the camera. So for me is that. And then we have those beautiful emoticons, right? Show up your feeling. Give me hearts. Give me a round of applause. Cheer off for people when they say something good. And sometimes it's that idea of how can we cultivate 2, 3, 5 minutes before or after a meeting that is just for connection. And that's always great. Sometimes teams, for example, can bring a quote or a reflection. Hey, what was something great you did? Of course, time it, because you still have to be productive in your work. And you cannot spend the whole meeting having a great conversation about yourself. But you can time it as 2 minutes. Anybody has something big to celebrate? Little by little, those teams start understanding and learning from each other and building that connection.
Exactly. And I think, all of this is so important. I think especially for virtual. We have a really close team, and when I was looking at working for Life Guide, well, when I was looking for a new job, a new venture, my whole life had shifted. I was very clear about what I wanted, and one of the things that I wanted was I wanted it to be virtual, but I also wanted it to be a place where my personality was allowed. So, and that's really important to me because I consider myself a professional relationship builder. I love people so much. And I'm business professional. I work in a corporate setting, but I also know how to make it personal and I know how to make it matter. So my emails are affectionate and I use an exclamation point and I'll use an emoji and I'll call people and I will I'll talk to people about their lives, and it really is just the little things about like what does it look like to really relate to people? What does it look like to really support people? And what does it look like to really connect with people too? So even our team, my little team we came up with a team name and we have our little team meeting, and it's just cute. It brings us together, and it's little things. We all participated in it. We had a poll. So making it human centric at work, whether it's remote or whether you're in person, there are so many opportunities for it. But at the base of it all, humans are at the base of most of our organizations that we're working with. And you all matter. So we hope that this inspires you to maybe even see the way that if you're not even a leader, like your smile can change the culture of an organization, can change your
Almost.
team. I promise. So I'm going to drop Edith's link in the chat if you would like to book a one-on-one call with her and you were really inspired by what she said. That's there for you. And Edith, do you have any final notes as we close out Motivational Monday?
I'm going to leave everyone with a challenge.
Please.
I want you to think about how do I need to be doing today for others to feel safe with me? That's your challenge. Because as you make other people feel safe, they will start giving that in return, and you will be creating a more human centric environment around you. Thank you so much for having me, and I will see you Wednesday.
Yes, we'll see you all on Wednesday. I'm going to drop our link in the chat one more time so that you guys can register for our events. We have a survey that pops up right after this. We had one last minute Q&A that popped up at the end, but we wouldn't have had time to answer it. So feel free to schedule a session with Edith. We're so happy to have you. We'll see you on Wednesday and we'll see you on Monday and we'll just keep growing from here. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a beautiful week.
You.
Bye.
Bye.